Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring, a new way to handbell. My name is Brenda Austin, and it is my sincere hope that through connecting with us today, you will be inspired to use handbells to make a difference, to add value to our world. Let's get out there and bring the ring. Hello and welcome to Bring the Ring, where we are connecting with one another, connecting with our handbell composers to talk about handbells, how we can use handbells to really impact our world, to make a difference, to add value to others. Today, we welcome Michael Glasgow to Bring the Ring. If you have spent any time with Michael, then most likely you were laughing. Michael brings so much joy through his incredible sense of humor. He is an extremely accomplished conductor and composer with many published and commissioned compositions and arrangements. He's the full-time music minister at North Raleigh United Methodist Church, and he serves as the bass section leader for the North Carolina Master Chorale. Michael is dynamic, engaging, bringing out great musicality in all the groups that he works with. So welcome, Michael. So glad to have you here.
Hello. Good to see you, Brenda.
It's awesome to see you. Hey, I know that a bunch of us had things canceled, gigs canceled when we all shut down. But what have you got going that you can look forward to that we can hear about?
Well, how much time you have? I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. I gotta say, before we fully dive into what's coming, I gotta acknowledge what's in the past. You know, the piece we're talking about today, Refuge, was commissioned by Area 5 for their spring festival this year. And that was in Louisville. You were there. That was the first weekend in March. And that was really the last thing I had before everything shut down. So I'm really grateful that we were able to do that event because it was ginormous there in Kentucky and have that done before everything had to get canceled or postponed. So what's on the books might not be what actually happens because things keep getting moved and postponed and juggled. But I've got, I'm supposed to be conducting with Ministry of Bells in Singapore in January. And the world premiere of my concerto for castings is coming up in Hong Kong in May. And the premiere of my Gloria at Carnegie Hall is coming up in June. And all kinds of other various bell and choral type things here and there around the country as well. It's going to be a really big year next year if we can do everything.
I'd love for you to talk to us about Refuge. Tell us about the piece. Thank you to Area 5 for commissioning it, but how did it come to be?
Well, the event for the spring festival for this year was, I guess, the area was thinking they didn't specifically want the usual association where bells are a church instrument, which of course they have a huge presence in church, and that's why they have that sort of stereotype. But they decided to do bluegrass, bourbon, and bells. It was in Louisville, Kentucky, and they started talking to me about this, and I'm not a bourbon drinker, but I know that there is a hymn tune called Bourbon. That was one of those filed away in the brain type of things that resurfaced at the appropriate moment. So it's an American tune, pentatonic. It's usually in a triple meter, pretty slow, usually in a minor key. And that starts the piece. Freeman Lewis wrote that. He's a native New Englander, lived in the late 1700s to early 1800s. And the text that's associated with it usually is, I found a refuge in the Lord. So it starts with this almost kind of dark, stately, heavy kind of mode. And then the introduction is that tune. And then it just kind of gets altered and explodes into the boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, chick of bluegrass kind of groove. And then it's paired later, it's put with another tune that is in 4 and is bright and major, Daniel Teasley's very obscure tune for I Found a Refuge from Every Sorrow. And I don't even think it has an actual hymn tune name. I think it's I Found a Refuge from Every Sorrow. And that it's in like 3 hymnals, according to hymnary.org. So I did not know about that one, but realized that they could kind of be really fun complements to one another. So you'll hear the spot in the piece where it kind of like bursts into major with that second tune.
So Refuge is kind of a follow-up to another bluegrass style arrangement
Yes.
that you've done with us, No Dark Valley. I know that we're going to explore it more in detail later, but what can you tell us about how they tie in?
So No Dark Valley was my first attempt at something bluegrassy, and it wasn't by design that happened right out of the gate. It just kind of evolved that way. Um, there's a longstanding event, a Seventh-day Adventist event in Toledo, Ohio, called Ringfest that happens toward around Halloween every year. Not this year, sadly, but they had me in a couple times. They really do it well, and they commissioned something. They wanted something from the Seventh-day Adventist hymnal that may not be terribly well known that I could make extra fun. That was pretty much the end of the directions or of the request for the commission. So when we were specifically talking about something for a bluegrass themed festival, that piece was on the rep, but they said, we'd like our commission to be kind of in that style. So it's written really similar instrumentation and construction.
Sure, absolutely. You've got a lot of instrumentation in both pieces, fiddle, bass, guitar, tambourine. I
Yeah.
know it's written to be flexible, but what if groups don't have all those instruments available?
Well, if they don't have them available, they probably can't include them in their performance of the pieces. But having said that, you don't have to have all of them available. With this, it's more of a case of, if you only have the tambourine, use just the tambourine with the bells and chimes. If you've got fiddle and bass, great. If you've got only fret players, the guitar part's actually a frets and melody part. So it's with some notes in there, it's adaptable for guitar and or mandolin and or banjo. So, throw them all on it and let them have fun. It's, bluegrass isn't usually as prescriptive as this. There's a lot of sort of jam session stuff that just evolves. So you use what you got, and they get a little extra moment to shine in it too, which is cool.
Absolutely. Talk
And it
to
works
me.
with just the bells. If you just have the bells and chimes, it's very satisfying just by itself.
Sure. Talk to me about your favorite part of the piece.
You're grinning because you think you know what it is.
I do. I think it's the ending.
That's because every time the ending goes well, I do this like little dance because it's so much fun. It ends with a very standard sort of bluegrass lick, and it works really well coming out of the ending of the piece. And I do love coming into the ending of the piece to button it up, so to speak. But that's actually not my very favorite part. My very favorite part is the band break. We often bring in, if we don't have people in our churches or community groups or schools that play the various extra instruments, we're often bringing in a ringer, no pun intended, a pro to play just at the last rehearsal and then for the service or the concert. And they're often given their part. It's like, okay, you're just an accessory with the bells. But I wanted to give them a little more chance to shine, which also is in keeping with bluegrass style, where there's little breaks and everyone's got a little solo lick. So there's a section in here where actually the bells just need to hang back and chill, and they accompany the single line instruments. Starts with a fiddle solo, and then it passes the baton, so to speak, to the fret player. And if you don't have any of the extra instruments, there's a really simple cut that you just turn the page, cut those 15 bars, and it goes on without a problem because the bells aren't doing anything melodic. It's just background. So that's my favorite section. It's very active. It's fun to watch. It's fun to listen. So I like the band break. We'll hear that when we get to it.
Awesome. Well, let's listen to it. Here we go.
So this is that first fervent, little bit of rhythmic manipulation to fit into 4 instead of in 3. Buckle up. Melodies in the tenor here, so march easy. It is possible to march softly. So now we're into the Teasley tune, the second tune in the group of birds. And this is where the band break starts. So fiddle solo first. And then it passes off to the frets. You can't not be happy when you hear that ending. I mean, the whole piece is just fun, but that ending just makes me dance. It's
absolutely,
and it's in good company with a lot of, like, you know, Lady Gaga and Madonna and Kesha and Katy Perry and stuff too, from the trashy pop side of life. Love it.
Absolutely, bring it on. Yeah, I agree. It's just, you can't be having a bad day when you are playing or listening to that one.
Exactly.
So what advice do you have for directors or conductors that are preparing this piece for performance?
I guess the main thing here is to make sure, first of all, that everybody knows the source material. There's two main things. I have two soapboxes here. So, and none of this is radical, but just stuff that often gets pushed aside, and it can really be a good investment in your rehearsals for anything. If you're working on an arrangement of something that's an existing tune, make sure that the ringers know what the original source stuff sounds like. You know, whether that's going out to hymnary.org, which I use all the time to source different stuff, public domain things, they've got PDF scans, or they'll tell you what hymnals different things are published in. But my ringer started and they all got a copy. Here's one hymn, here's the other one, and we sang them. And some of them complained, of course, because it's church. I mean, because they're not singing. But, you know, it's like, well, I'm in the bell choir because I don't sing, or I'd be in the chancel choir. Well, you don't need to sing and sound good. You just need to be able to get it in your brain and in your ears so you can recognize it. Because we're all guilty of this as directors, screaming at our ringers, playing out the melody, bring out the melody. If they don't know what the melody is, they can't bring it out, especially in something like this where you've got two different tunes. One's been rhythmically altered, one's a verse and a chorus, or a verse and a refrain. You know, they got to know what is melody and what isn't. So I make people sing and make them learn what the original thing sounds like, get it in their head, and then we pull it together and they can go, oh yeah, I'm just background here. I shouldn't be playing out, you know. The other thing is just be faithful to the preparation. You know, we spend so much rehearsal time actually practicing instead of rehearsing, because most ringers can't practice on their own. Most of them don't have a set of bells at home. So if you can make your bells available, obviously times are different right now, but in normal times, you know, at your school or your church or your community center, if they can get in and practice, they'll do it. And it makes a huge difference. But when you're in a rehearsal setting, if something isn't coming together, like you're working that ending, just commit to, like, we're going to do this 8 times and we're going to get it right. And then we're going to do it, once it's perfect, we're going to do it 3 more times. And just make that understanding up front, because people get bored if they're not involved in that part or they're not having a hard time. But just drilling it down, it's so important, and it's worth it in the end, because then we all love when the group does well, you know. So we all have to be a team. That's kind of our bell sport.
Yep.
As close as I can get to organized sports is handbell music.
You and me both.
I went to one game in my entire high school and college career. And that was only because it was homecoming and my date was on court. So I had to walk her out on the field at what I kept calling intermission. It's called halftime.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So I've only been on a football field once, and it was with a pretty girl on my arm and in a tuxedo.
Well, Michael, always a pleasure to chat with you, especially about your music. Thank you for coming and being part of Bring the Ring, and I look forward to our next time.
Me too. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was fun to see you. See you.
Yes. All right. Well, take care.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today. Brenda Austin is the handbell editor for Hope Publishing, where we are equipping musicians for excellence. Visit hopepublishing.com or call 1-800-323-1049 for all your music needs. For questions about this episode of Bring the Ring, contact Brenda at brenda@hopepublishing.com. Our show notes can be found on our Facebook page or in the comments below.